Hi all, it's Jennifer Palmer, and welcome back to the Welly Walk podcast. So this is going to be episode 6, but kind of episode 4. I've had 2 kind of mini episodes plonked in to the mix, but this one we're going back to the original story that I started with episode 1. So if you haven't listened to those episodes, please go back. Unless you like to listen to things out of order and then, you do you. So where did we leave off? Last episode was a little mini B-story episode about all of my friends that have come out of the woodwork with breast cancer and the fact that 1 in 7 of us, and yes, men can get breast cancer too, will be diagnosed with breast cancer in our lifetime, so please remain vigilant. It was also about my friend in America who's struggling to get the care that she needs. And it's really aggravating because she's stuck in this bureaucracy of American healthcare and insurance. And yeah, it's a conundrum, which I was hoping maybe we could solve together. If any of you have any ideas, please listen to that episode and let me know. You can comment here. You can find me on Instagram at wellywalk. Yeah, so let's get back to it. This episode, Psychopomp, was the episode I did last about the main storyline. And in that episode, I talked about psychopomps who are, or that are, spiritual guides to the soul. So a psychopomp can be a person, it could be a thing, it could be anything that turns your attention around from the external world and material possessions and goal striving, and it turns your attention back around to your psyche, down to the depths of your soul, your inner child, or your true self. Martha Beck calls it your body, mind, heart, soul chime. I thought that was pretty elegant and poetic. Makes sense to me, because when something is true, you feel it. It is like a chime deep down in your soul, drawing your attention to it. And whether it's true in a good way or true in a bad way, you can hear that chime. And that's when you're also thinking at your best. And in the last episode, I had journeyed to Sardinia. And this body, mind, heart, soul chime had come into play when I had discovered the book, The Paper Palace. And I had read it and been completely transported. But more so, I had this aha moment. Because as I read the book, I was struck by how cinematic she writes and how visual it is. And I was captivated by it. And I just thought, my screenplay should be a novel. And I could see myself writing like this. It showed me that there was a possibility that my sensibility could translate into a novel. And in this moment, I felt this great wave of enthusiasm welling up inside of me and picking me up and just carrying me forth from Sardinia, making me feel so excited to get back and to write. To write. Finally, I would be able to finish this experiment. The thing I presented to Charlie, my plan that while I was recovering from my surgery, I could experiment with 3 different options that could potentially solve the issue of my purposefulness, my feeling of distress, of feeling disassociated with myself. I thought my purpose is the answer. And I had experimented with garden design and interior design, and writing was the other thing that I had planned, and I hadn't gotten to it. I had been resistant. I'd been resistant of getting back to it, and now the door was opening. The door was opening, and I was allowed to pass through, and I was going to finish this last leg of my plan. Julia Cameron talks about the word enthusiasm in The Artist's Way, and I turned down the page because I just wanted to remember that this feeling is a signal. This feeling is a thing to grab onto and to understand what is causing it. It is pointing you in a direction. It is your inner body, mind, heart, soul chime telling you, ring-a-ding-ding, this is it. This is it. And she says enthusiasm in Greek means filled with God. And again, I am not religious in a God type of way, but I know what that feels like, right? Filled with God. It's like enthusiasm. You know what it feels like. When you're enthusiastic, it does feel like the universe is saying, yes, 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 yes. This is it. We've got your back. We've checked all the checks. We authorize this. This wave of enthusiasm carries you. Yes, it picks you up. And it's your body, mind, heart, soul chime saying, you got this. This is the direction to go. So with that, I grabbed onto it. And the wave of enthusiasm carried me from Sardinia, and it set me back down in the UK in front of my laptop. And the kids were back at school. And I was entering this period that I was terrified of because things were officially going back to normal. Basically, I no longer had protected status as somebody with a doctor's note who was supposed to stay in bed for 3 months and had the right to watch Netflix ad nauseum. And I no longer had this kind of surrender of the summer holidays, knowing that I had a very shallow well to draw on of energy. And basically, I had to prioritize just being there for my children and taking care of myself. Now, I was getting a little bit more energy every single day. The kids were at school for 6 hours a day, which meant that I had to get back to work. I had to get my Pilates studio back up and running officially. I had to get as many clients back as I could. And luckily, they came back. They came back. Some of them said they had tried other Pilates places, but they didn't compare to me. And I appreciated that. And I started to feel a new appreciation for all of my clients who came back. And getting back to the Pilates, it was actually great because I had had a break from it. And now I could come back with new focus, new ideas of how to make my teaching more effective. And suddenly also the teaching was more natural. I was afraid that I would be rusty, but it was quite the opposite. It had sunk in, it had matured. I was just more comfortable as a teacher. But then at the same time, Pilates was this adversary. It was this thing that demanded my attention, demanded so much of my energy. In order for me to bring in my financial end of the bargain, which I had to do, having taken so many months off of work, we were in a pickle and I really had to get back to it. But at the same time, the whole point of this crisis was that I needed to not be doing that anymore. That was not the thing. That wasn't giving me happiness. That wasn't giving me fulfillment. It wasn't fulfilling my curiosity. There was something about it that was wrong for me. And the very nature of it demanding so much time and energy meant that I had no time and energy to spend figuring it out, figuring out what the solution was. And now that I had to go back to work, I felt this divide, this adversarial position that I was entering in with the Pilates. I had to nurture it. I had to appreciate it because it had given me so much and I was good at it and I appreciated my clients and I believed in the work, but at the same time, it wasn't the right thing. It didn't feel like the right thing. So how do I balance this? Especially now that I have this new prospect, which was to write a novel, which was crazy. And my inner gremlins immediately stood to attention and marched into the room and they were like, excuse me, who do you think you are? You have no right writing a novel. You did not study noveling. We can't do this. And I just thought, it's an experiment. That's all it is. We're just going to try. It's going to be a little bit of play. We're not going to put any pressure on it. And the Artist Way had taught me a new way of approaching this kind of scenario, where normally I would be terrified and I would be filled with fear that I was going to fail, and that was my immediate approach. You'd look at the blank page and it would be like hitting your head up against a brick wall. Instead, the artist's way was teaching me to just arrive and to be led, to give yourself permission to enter this space and nurture your creativity. So it was this completely different mindset. And I had some affirmations that I was working with that were really helping me, like I arrive and allow myself to be led. I provide the quantity and the universe provides the quality. And speed kills the sensor. This is very important. And I learned a lot about this through Dr. Swart and the neuroscience. If you allow your prefrontal cortex, your logical brain, to get control in a creative scenario, you are doomed. You need to get past the sensor, past your logical brain, and you need to allow your brain to work in this higher state in which it can bounce freely all about. It needs to make surprising connections. And if you're judging yourself, if that logical brain is there being like, don't know about that sentence, you really cannot write. You can't spell. You've never been able to spell. Notice how the logical brain can be that inner critic, right? The censor. So you need to get past it, and speed kills the censor. And likewise, I was learning about the neuroscience from Dr. Swart and why affirmations work. And I'll remind you that even Julia Cameron said when you first start working with affirmations, it seems really cheesy and it seems hocus pocusy and crunchy, and you want to be pessimistic about it. But really, what's happening is you are rewiring your brain to just start thinking a different way than is its preset mode. And again, to counterbalance against that logical brain, which can be very critical and which is geared towards fear and risk aversion. So again, your brain is wired 2 times more strongly towards risk aversion than it is towards taking healthy risks and looking at a situation with optimism, because it's a survival mechanism. If you think back to the days when there were tigers in the bushes and, danger all around, you had to be vigilant and you had to expect the worst, and that would help you with your survival. But we're not in that situation anymore. So affirmations are just a way to kind of remind you that you have a choice. And what I learned from the neuroscience is your brain believes what you tell it. It believes whatever you tell it, that's how it's going to become conditioned. So when I say prime your brain towards abundance, prime your brain towards lack thinking, prime your brain towards optimism, prime your brain towards pessimism, you have a choice. It's like a path diverging, and you could go one way or you could go the other. And affirmations are just a really helpful tool to remind you of how you want to reprogram yourself, how you want to rewire yourself. And for me, it was this constant reminder that fear is in the eye of the beholder, or danger is in the eye of the beholder, and I don't need to be afraid. I can just remind myself that things are okay, things are safe, and I can choose to live. I can choose to allow myself to take risks. I can choose to give myself permission to embrace myself and care for myself. And these are choices that I can make. You are what you think. You create your thoughts. You write your destiny. You are the director. You are the architect. You are the cleaner. You are the builder. You are all these things. You're constantly directing your brain in the direction that you want it to go, and you have a choice. Are you going to go one way or the other way? And I wanted to choose the way of possibility, the way of hope, the way of optimism, of abundance, and I wanted to see if it worked. And the thing was, the evidence showed me it was working. it was working. So the first day that I had back at the laptop, this wave of enthusiasm carrying me all the way from Sardinia back to the kids, getting the kids back to school the next day. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to do it quick. I'm not going to allow myself time to to procrastinate. I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to pour it out. I'm going to see what happens. And this is play. This is experimentation. I opened my laptop. I opened up a blank Word document. I put my fingers to the keys and I just let whatever came out flow. And I didn't know what style it would be. I didn't know if it was going to be first person or third person or whatever person. I didn't know. I just wanted to be led. And the miraculous thing was it happened. I was led. The characters of my screenplay, which I had worked on in some way, shape, or form for the last 20 years, were all there. Like they had just been waiting in the wings and they're like, yes, we're on now. And it was almost like I was a documentarian. I was just recording what I saw in front of me and they were performing for me. It was like a film that I was watching and I was just writing it all down. And it was brilliant. And I tried to return to it the next day and I was lucky enough that there was a next day fairly soon after that. And I repeated and I let it go and it flowed. And again, I got 3,000 words down and I wasn't judging myself. Speed kills the censor. Arrive and be led. Fill in the form. These are the things that I was thinking. And the enthusiasm was at my back and it was propelling me forward. But then things started to go awry in that scheduling happened. Life happens. How could I be so bold as to think that things would be simple? How could I be so brash to think that I could actually fit in enough time, make time to write a novel when I have so many other responsibilities? So first of all, teaching Pilates, my clients came back, which was great, but they really wanted to spread out over the entire week in different hours that suited them and their schedules. So I knew I had to rein this in. I had to pick 2 days and then try as best I could to get them all squeezed into those 2 days, into those hours. And of course, this didn't happen because everyone's got schedules. Everyone's got scheduling difficulty. And if I was to say no to somebody, then I would lose out on an hour of work. So I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. An hour here, we'll do it. And I'm going to try and be that type of writer that can kind of dip in and out and we'll see if it happens. It will be an experiment. We'll see. So I did that. And of course, it does make it really difficult. When you enter flow, it is like the most heavenly, delicious thing. Flow state is just kind of peak brain. When you enter flow state, your brain becomes motivated, it becomes focused, and you start to tune out all the distractions. And as this is happening, you're building dopamine slowly. And dopamine is the motivation hormone. And we all would love a little bit more motivation in our life, I think. And you can flow doing almost anything. It's anything where all of a sudden you're focusing, you feel motivated, and you can feel this kind of leveling up of your focus. And at the end of it, your dopamine levels are rising and rising and rising. And when you get to the end and you've done a really good bout of focused work, you release serotonin, which is the hormone associated with contentment. So we all know what that feels like as well when you have these moments. And you can enter flow state reading a book, working on a project, working on your laptop, gardening, playing a musical instrument, painting, going for a run, writing, journaling, anything. As long as it's focused work and it progresses over a long period of time and you can feel it becoming more efficient, more effective as it goes. You can feel that the resistance to that work starts to melt away as you become more engrossed in the thing that you're doing. And that's when you hit flow. And I believe they say it takes about 15 minutes of focused concentration on something before you can enter into the state. So it's something to be managed and to use discipline to get there. But once you get there, the rewards are huge and it's fantastic. And the other thing I learned is that this is, our ancestors, again, our hunter-gatherers back with the tigers and the tigers in the bushes, would have needed flow state and would have used it constantly in order to keep them motivated to spend long hours hunting, to spend long hours trying to build something, to achieve, to make a tool or something like that. This concentration and that feeling of reward that you get at the end from serotonin, it's built into our systems. It is our biology. So don't fight it. Find places in your life where you can embrace it, is what I would say. And so I was loving this flow state when I was getting it with the writing. But then it was really hard to then have it broken up, to have to put it down when you're right in the middle of peak flow, and then put on another hat, put on my Pilates hat, and go and try to enter flow with a different set of rules. And then that to only take an hour, and then have to try to go back and jump into the writing and get into flow state again. It takes about 15 minutes to even start to get there. And then you need a period of time where you can really be in it and not be distracted. And that's the key point. You cannot be distracted in order to have this flow state. But then what else was happening? The scheduling malarkey. I'll tell you, something that I forgot about was, yes, I have to take this time that I need to teach, and then I want all this time that I want to write and this grand experiment. But what about all the rest of it? All the invisible work, the work that I keep forgetting about, that we all forget about. It's the domestic. It's the childcare. It's the general pastoral care of the household that is on my shoulders, that is my responsibility. And I'm no longer upstairs in bed with that doctor's note, and it's no longer the summer holidays when the kids are just home and I'm not teaching, and it's very clear that my time is just taking care of this domestic sphere. Now I have to try and fit all of that in and try to protect this time that I want to write, to enter this lovely flow state, and also protect this time that I need to bring in my financial end of the bargain and support my clients. And it was just almost impossible because this invisible work, it's so gargantuan. It's like a coal face. All of a sudden there was this coal face in front of me and I hadn't even seen it. I had been focusing on my laptop, and when I looked up beyond my laptop, there it was, this gigantic rock face, this big coal face reaching high up into the air saying, "Hello, remember us? Don't forget you gotta do the meal planning. You gotta cook all the food, and it better be nutritious, and don't shortcut there, no processed foods, and you gotta be there for your kids emotionally and take care of them, and they're gonna be sick. There's often gonna be a kid who's sick, and then they end up staying home for the entire week, and guess what, the next week, the other kid is gonna be sick. Oh, and we've got doctor's appointments. Oh, and the boiler broke, so this guy's going to come and fix the boiler, and you're going to have to manage that situation. And the tap's not working in the other room, so you got to call the plumber. And don't forget to do your taxes. Your taxes are going to take about a week, and you got to do your American taxes, and you got to do your British taxes. So 2 weeks on that. Oh, and then the cleaning, and the Sisyphean task of the laundry, which is this pile that never seems to deplete, only builds and builds and builds, and you're constantly folding, and then bags of laundry that needs to be put away, and you never quite get to it, and then everyone's like, "Where's the laundry?" And then they rifle through the laundry, and it all gets messed up again, and you have to refold it, or they jump on the pile of laundry after you've refolded it, and you have to refold it again. Anyway, I'm digressing, but you get the point. And then all of the emails, all of the PA stuff, it's enough to drive you bonkers. And it was at this point that I remembered a key driver in my mental health crisis was all of this stuff that became my job, that became my responsibility. And fair enough, my husband had a career. He was on a trajectory. He's on a ladder. We have to prioritize around that. He has to commute. which takes up all of his time. He has to work on weekends doing various things, and he's exhausted. And, we have to keep him ticking along. And I'm at home, and I have a job that's at home that I can do hour by hour. So it makes complete sense that I take on all this responsibility. But it's invisible work, and we always underestimate how long these tasks take because we just think they're invisible, right? It makes me always think of like house elves from Harry Potter. That's what I am. It's like I have a side job as a house elf, and it's a secret and nobody really knows about it, but they come back from school and the house elf has been there. It's so tidy, and there's a pot of something bubbling away on the stove, and there's cookies in the oven. It's like, oh, the house elf was here doing all this and managing the play dates and all of even the adult social interactions. I was just talking to a friend this morning, and she was complaining because her husband's friend wanted to arrange a dinner with a couple different couples, and he arranged this by talking solely to the women, not talking to any of the men. So it became the women's role to arrange this couples meetup, even though it was the men who were instigating it. Anyway, it always just falls on us. We become this, it's the default that the women are the secretaries, that we're in charge of the calendar. And it's work. It adds a lot to our plate. It's more things to remember. It's more tasks to quote unquote multitask, which I'm going to get to in a second. But anyway, all of this work, this invisible work, this house elf work, it drives you absolutely bonkers because you are taking on what are full-time jobs. Full-time job of a cook, full-time job of a nanny, full-time job of a cleaner, full-time job of a housekeeper, full-time job of a chauffeur, full-time job of a PA. Just the magnitude of it. And we expect that we can do that and also aspire to have careers at the same time. We were told as women that, we could have it all now. We're modern. We are feminist. We all are equals now, and we can have it. But the logistics of society and the logistics of the support network and the logistics of the cost of living make this impossible. We have to take on all of these jobs, but then we don't get the credit for it. I never feel appreciated. I never feel appreciated for doing all this work, and you don't get paid for it. So you don't have anything to show for it, and it's driving you bonkers. So all of a sudden I realized this coal face was there, and I was up against this thing which I forgot about, which was one of the main drivers pushing me to my insanity, pushing me to my rock bottom moment. It wasn't just the Pilates. The Pilates was this little niggle, this little thorn, maybe, in my side, this thing reminding me that, oh, you're not getting to pursue this other thing, this thing that had the promise of fulfilling you and giving you a sense of purpose. The driver of my insanity was this coal face, was this feeling of being bonkers. Really, what I probably needed was to do the domestic duties 2 days out of the week, leave myself maybe 1 day where I could write while the kids are at school, and then 2 days of the week where I teach Pilates. Probably it should be 3. There actually isn't enough space and time in this week. So I'm trying to make the improbable probable. How do I do it? And of course, as always happens in this podcast, on my little journey here, the universe delivers me another psychopomp, another somebody to guide me. And this person was David Epstein. David Epstein is a journalist who specializes in performance, and he started out with sports performance, and he wrote The Sports Gene, which I haven't read, but I really want to read. And then he came out with another book called Range, which was all about kind of career performance. And this was particularly interesting to me because, of course, this is the theme of this journey of this midlife crisis. And a lot of midlife crises is about your sense of purpose. And your sense of purpose is very much tied in normally with this identity as somebody who does something in the world, who has a profession. And I didn't feel like I had found my profession, my calling, my purpose. And here was David Epstein on The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett talking about all of his research into career performance. And basically, how do we focus better? How do we learn better? How do we find our match fit? The thing that we're supposed to do, that we are going to be the best at, that we will be successful at. How do we do that? Basically, how do you find your purpose? And oh my God, this was just like, I was like a kid in a candy store with this episode. So I want to tell you about some of the things that I took away, that I started to apply, that helped me, that oiled the works and kept this experiment going and stoked the fires of it as well, got me really excited. And the first thing is he talked about how do we focus better? And tasks. I talked about this in my little mini episode, the Country Bunny, but I'm going to really talk about it here and get into detail. So tasks, the subject of tasks. Basically, your day is constantly being broken up into tasks. And people think that you can multitask. And they always say, oh, women are such good multitaskers because they have to be mothers and our brains are just built to be multitaskers. But the truth of the matter is, apparently, we cannot multitask. Not just women, nobody can multitask. So big fallacy. Cross that out in your brain. No multitasking for us. What happens instead is that the reality is we toggle between tasks. We have to task switch. We cannot do two things at the same time. We have to do one thing, and then in order to do another thing, we have to basically take the rules for that first thing that we're doing in our brain and we erase them, and we have to write over them with the new rules that apply to the next thing we want to do, the other task. And then if we want to switch to another task, we have to erase the rules for the task we're doing, and then we have to write the new rules down and go to the next task. And this task switching creates a lot of stress, cortisol. It releases cortisol because it is quite intensive thing to do. And if you're doing this at high velocity, which has been my experience of being a mother, has been task switching to the nth degree on steroids, which I always thought was me being really bad at multitasking because it was so extremely stressful to me. But it turns out, no, it's just the stress of task switching constantly. So you've got this in your brain. Toggling between tasks is the way the brain works, and it creates stress every time you have to do it. The other thing is that each task that we don't finish leaves a residue on your brain, an actual residue on your brain, in order to remind you, to bring you back to it, to remind you that it needs to get done, right? Which makes sense. That's like, yeah, you don't forget that you have a pan of hot water boiling on the stove. You don't forget the cookies in the oven. You don't forget that bill that you have to pay. You get the point. So then the other insidious thing is that if you, for example, start your day by opening your emails and looking at all these unopened emails, each one of those is a task. Each one of those is a task you've presented to your brain. It's going to put some residue on your brain to help you remember that you need to go and answer these emails or delete these emails or whatever. And the same applies, I thought, this brought my brain to WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is usually the thing that I would open first thing in the morning and have like 25 messages, 25 WhatsApps, all from different quarters of my life. Friends, clients, from the school, from whatever, all of these things. So again, those are tasks that you're kind of writing in your brain. You're putting residue on your brain to remind yourself that you have to go back and do them. So this whole thing kind of just blew my mind because immediately I recognized that this has been a big problem for me. This is a big problem for anyone who's in a caregiver situation where your job is taking care of someone else and it squeezes so much of your time out. And then if you want to have another career as well, balancing that, or even if you don't want to have a career, if you just want to have a time to take care of yourself on the very basic level, take care of your health, that takes a lot of time, having time to exercise, etc. And then if you want to actually feed your soul, feed your curiosity, keep yourself feeling like life is abundant, this task switching, all this stress is really hampering this ability to balance. And I would say my husband too, task switching, modern life, it is grinding us all down and taking away all of our time and our energy and our focus and our motivation. It's taking away our motivation because it is keeping us so distracted. Keeping us so distracted dampens our ability to have slow dopamine, which is motivation. Just imagine, you're at the sink and you're doing your dishes and your kids are home and you know that they're in the other room and they might interrupt you at any time. So you've got this in the back of your brain. You're doing the dishes, you've got to get through this big pile. And of course, somebody interrupts you. A kid starts screaming, runs in, needs you to do something. You've got to stop. You've got to turn your attention to that kid. In that moment, you have task switched. So you've had to erase the rules for your washing the dishes. And now you've got to write down the rules for how do I talk to this child in a way that's nurturing, that creates resilience for that child and for me, and I don't lose it. And the kid is perturbed. Maybe the remote doesn't work or the other kid has hurt their feelings or whatever it is, you've got to negotiate that. That's a big stressful task right there. And then the kid leaves you alone and you've got to go back to your dishes and you're going back to your dishes and then your phone pings and there's a notification. And then you remember, oh my gosh, I needed to pay this bill. And then I have to sign up this kid for this thing. Oh, right, there's 2 parties this weekend, 2 birthday parties. So you have to get a birthday present for a 6-year-old. You've got to get a birthday present for a 9-year-old. Don't forget to wrap the presents. You need to get them by this point. You're planning all this out. And then the laundry finishes and buzzes and you're reminded, oh my God, I've got to go get the laundry out and I've got to fold it before it all gets creased. And then, you forgot to put a timer on the oven and the cookies are burning. Each one of these things, in order to think about them, you have to task switch. Yes. And the crazy thing is, like, even if it's WhatsApp, between 2 different WhatsApps, you will have to task switch because one WhatsApp might have a different social rule, than another WhatsApp. So say you're WhatsApping to a girlfriend and that has its own rules and you can be funny and you can be jokey and you love that person. You want to make sure they feel that in your text. And then you got to remember, you got to go text your mother-in-law and that's got different rules in a different way. And you got to text the school and you've got to text a client. Each of these various things comes with a different set of rules. So even switching in WhatsApp or messaging or whatever you use, texting from one person to another, you're still task switching, you're still creating stress. So is this is this conversation making you stressed? It's making me a little bit stressed just thinking about this. So this is the truth behind task switching, and it made me realize that I am creating an environment of heightened stress for myself, and I have been creating chronic stress. And I can't say it's just me. I think it's life, it's society, it's the way things are done these days that put so much on our plates. Everybody, so much on everybody's plates, but especially if you are in the same boat as me and juggling all these different things, there is implicit built-in stress to task switching. So just know that this is happening. Also, on top of this, the insidious thing is that if you get interrupted doing a task, I learned this from someone else, not David Epstein, but from TJ Power in his book, The Dose Effect. But it dovetails with this, what David Epstein was saying. If you get interrupted in a task, it'll take 40% longer for you to finish that task, all told. So if you think about how many times in your day you're interrupted, that's a lot. If you start to become aware of when you're interrupted, especially as a mum, it's just constant. And each time you're interrupted, you have to task switch. And then to go back and finish the task, it will take you 40% longer than originally predicted. It's creating stress, and it is taking you twice as long to do everything. So that was something where I was like, all right, this is a problem. My friend Sarah has a great podcast. I'll put it in the show notes. And she has an episode about time. And she talked about how making time is like how you make a sandwich. Like you make time, you make a sandwich. And this came to mind when I was learning all this. Like, I can make time. I can make time by managing my tasks and managing the amount of times that I am distracted, that I am disrupted, because it's taking me 40% longer to do everything because of this. So how can I fix this situation to make myself time? Like you'd make a sandwich. And so that was, yeah. Now, also, I want to add the phone bit because, yes, the phone. I'm starting to really loathe phones. The power that they have over all of us. We just need to become a lot more aware and a lot more disciplined about our phones. But know this, your phone is interrupting you all the time. So when I said things will take 40% longer if you get interrupted, your phone is interrupting you all the time with notifications. Notifications are pinging and it's pulling your brain, and your brain in that moment is task switching. It's bringing its focus to anticipate what that notification could be. And you're also releasing something called anticipatory dopamine, which I learned about, which makes total sense. So it's this dopamine that if something draws your attention to it and makes you want to go to it and pick it up, that's dopamine being released, trying to motivate you to go do that thing, right? And it's like if you're at a dinner and everyone's sitting there and someone pulls out their phone and you have that feeling of, oh, I want to check my phone too. And odds are everyone at the table at that moment is thinking, ooh, I want to check my phone. I want to check my phone too. What if there's something on it? What if I could do something on it? Right? That's anticipatory dopamine. Just start to notice when this happens. It happens if you're walking past a pub and you see somebody with a glass of wine at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and you get that feeling, oh, I'd really like a glass of wine. That's anticipatory dopamine. You are setting yourself up to feel motivated towards that thing. Anticipatory dopamine. Ugh. So anyway, your phone is interrupting you. It is making you task switch, therefore is creating stress. It is also disrupting you. So it's making things take that 40% longer. It's contributing towards that thing. So don't pick up your phone. Keep it somewhere else. Keep it outside of the room. The other thing that David Epstein brought up was that even if your phone is on silent, even if it's on airplane mode, it has trained you to anticipate the notifications. Isn't that crazy? So even though it's not there pinging at you, your brain knows that there's probably a notification coming through. It's been trained to anticipate around every so many minutes you're going to have a notification. You should probably check your phone. That's that feeling that you constantly need to just pick up your phone. If it's there near you, you just feel this like, I just need to check it. I just need to check it. You've trained yourself. You've trained your brain to anticipate. Again, there's anticipatory dopamine that you need to check your phone. So this is interrupting you all the time, even if your phone is on silent, even if your phone's in your bag. They've done studies that showed that performance-wise, people who have their phone in the room with them do not perform as well on tests as people who leave their phone someplace else. And this makes good sense to me. It is constantly subconsciously pulling our attention and interrupting and disrupting us. And there's a price to pay. So keep that in mind. So with all this in my brain, I set out to make my life a little less disrupted. I implemented things like, first of all, keeping the phone away from me, keeping it in another room as much as I could. And the media deprivation week supported this as well. So I didn't want my phone near me at all. And I would go back and I would check it a couple times during the day. TJ Power, who wrote The Dose Effect, which is a fantastic book, which I wish everybody would read, recommends having a schedule with your phone. You don't check it until 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you check it again around 3, and you check it around 8 o'clock. And those are time periods when you're allowed to be on it, and you've kind of ring-fenced this time when you can do tasks on your phone, but it keeps you from just constantly having this drag, this phone drag, right? And from also, I would say as David Epstein says, you're not front-loading yourself with tasks. So as soon as you open up your email in the morning, David Epstein said this as his recommendation, one of his recommendations for how you focus. He was like, if you can, do not check your emails first thing. And to this, I would add, don't check your messages on your phone either. Because as soon as you open it, you have made a list of tasks that's leaving residue on your brain that's going to be constantly disrupting you and reminding you of these unfinished tasks. So this disruption is again creating stress. It's creating task switching in your brain. I know, this is overwhelming, isn't it? So how do we do this? We just have to streamline. We just have to kind of think of it as hygiene, task hygiene. Is that an annoying thing to say? I'm going to say it. Task hygiene. It's part of your hygiene for your brain. So I try not to look at my phone first thing. And if you leave it in a different room, someplace else, and you give yourself a schedule when you can check on it, it just keeps you away from that phone lore, if you know what I mean, that drag. Okay, so these are some things. I also started to just train up my kids not to interrupt me, or to get used to the fact that if they interrupted me, I would say, okay, I'm just in the middle of something. Give me a couple minutes. I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to come to you. And that way, at least, I could go right back to the task at hand. I could finish it, get the residue off my brain, and then I'd go back to them, and I'd be there for the task at hand, for doing whatever they needed me for. And I could be present, and I wouldn't be thinking about this other thing that I had just abandoned that I needed to get back to. And the other thing that I learned that's really good, and David Epstein talks about this, but a lot of people talk about this, and I've heard about it in every self-helpy type of direction I've gone in, is writing a to-do list. And I'm pretty sure in The Artist's Way she talks about to-do lists, and it's a tool that therapists and psychiatrists give often to combat overwhelm. And essentially that's what all of this is. All of this task switching, all of this overload of responsibilities that we have is overwhelm, right? And it will lead to burnout. And the World Health Organization has identified this as basically an epidemic. They titled it an epidemic of the 21st century, stress. And depending on the population that's being studied, something like 54 to 88% of people have experienced burnout in the last 5 years. One study showed 80% of workers in the UK have experienced burnout in the last 5 years. And that's not a good thing. That's a problem. And it's because probably we're all overwhelmed. We're all task switching. We're all juggling. And I can guarantee that the phone is creating a lot of this. Just think about it. Just be aware of how much during the day your phone is loading you up with tasks and things that then might get left not done and are contributing to residue on your brain and this task switching, which creates stress. Anyway, I digress. To-do lists. So to-do lists is a tool that's often given to combat overwhelm, because basically what you're doing is you're taking all of the stuff that's inside of your brain, this list of all these tasks that the residue is on your brain, and you're writing it down so you can see it visually, and then you're able to prioritize it because you can see it. You've written it down. It's no longer just this swirl of amorphous residue, like gremlin-y reminders in the back of your head, piping up at all hours. All of a sudden it becomes something a little bit manageable. And it's also not surprising that I heard about from several sources that when you feel overwhelmed, oftentimes you feel compelled to tidy, to clean your space. And this corresponds kind of with this to-do list idea. It's another way of your brain feeling like it could get control when it's feeling it can't process everything that's being demanded of it, all the stress, all the task switching. So it wants to gain control by having control of its environment, right? So it's really natural when you feel overwhelmed and stressed to want to tidy, to feel more compelled to keep your space clean, to feel more aggravated when your space isn't clean. And I certainly feel that. And that's also something that during this time period became really apparent to me. I needed the house to be tidy. I needed it to be clean, or I felt like I was going to absolutely lose my shish kebabs, because it was just that extra thing kind of reminding me that my brain is chaos and that I need some control. And with this in mind, I also decided that I needed to streamline my life and my environment so that I was not constantly overwhelmed by the mess of it all. So, and environmentally, that meant first, I streamlined the house. I actually got rid of probably about 80% of the toys in the house. You monster, you might be thinking. But the thing is, if you look at the toys, for any of you who have kids, especially young kids, oh my God, you just seem to like, people give you toys, especially annoying toys that have batteries and make horrible noises and sounds at all hours, even in the middle of the night, turn on randomly. And, everyone's offloading toys onto you and you feel like, oh yeah, I should take those and the kids might love them. And then you kind of accumulate all of these baskets full of toys throughout your house. And then the kids get a hold of them, especially when there's a play date, and the house explodes and there is detritus everywhere. And if there isn't a place where that detritus lives, then you're just constantly stuffing it all back into random places and it feels chaotic. It feels crazy. And the thing that I discovered was that my kids really aren't playing with any of these toys. They will empty out a basket trying to find something they want to play with and not find anything they want to play with. And then all the toys just get left all over the room. And then you're left with this anxiety of like, I should be enforcing that they have to tidy up and they have to clean, which they hate. And then you're overwhelmed because you're also trying to do the dishes and you're also trying to cook the meal and you're also trying to do all the admin and you're thinking about all the other things that you want to be doing. And, it's stress, mounting. So what did I do about this? I went through every room in the house, and this took me a while. It was a project, but it was so worth it. I went through every drawer, and I got rid of anything that wasn't essential, that doesn't get used often. And I swear to God, I got rid of 80% of the toys, because really the only toys that the kids play with are the Lego. God bless Lego. Fantastic toys. And I got a big, gigantic bag. I got this big bag that you put all the Lego in, and then you can cinch up the bag into a sack. And then when they want to play with it, you uncinch it and it folds out. And it folds out into like kind of a canvas, into a rug. So they can see all the Lego on it. And then hopefully they don't toss all the Lego all over the room and it's still contained on this rug. You then cinch the rug back up and it becomes a sack filled with Lego. And I got one of those. So the Lego was all in this big bag and you move it from room to room. And I got baskets for the railway track, which they still love. They love the magnetiles and they love the marble run. And that's it. Those are and Playmobil, which is great, which is well-made stuff and I like. So those are the only toys that I really kept a hold on. Yes, some teddies and some other random things, but mainly things that are like big sets that they can get really involved in and that they appreciate and are made really well. And I organized all their craft materials. I got a new cupboard that became just the craft cupboard and is huge. And below it are some drawers. And what I did with those drawers was I pre-made little bundles of their clothes for the school week. So in England, kids wear uniforms, which is fantastic because there's no question about what am I going to wear today, and they can't get artistic with it. Everyone wears the same thing. every single day. And so I could make these kind of little sausages of their clothes, and I'd put them in the drawers so that when I'd say, and I'd kept them downstairs. So after breakfast, they just go to the room next door and they put on their sausages and they're ready and we can get out the door. So I streamlined my mornings that way. And all toys, all things had a place. They all had a home. So that if I needed to tidy a room, or if the kids needed to tidy a room, because now that things were organized and there was an obvious place where things lived, it became much easier for me to be like, okay, kids, you tidy up this room. And they didn't gripe so much because they have a couple baskets and the toys go into these baskets and there isn't a whole bunch of detritus and random toys with no place to go. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I did that with the drawers in the kitchen of random stuff, all the tacks and the Post-it notes and random cards from cafes that no longer exist, all this kind of stuff. Cleared all that out, cleared the cupboards out, got rid of all the old out-of-date food and organized it all and just made my life feel organized. And this is a tool. This is a strategy that is given by therapists, that is given by psychiatrists to help with overwhelm. And it was helping me, and it was also setting things up to just make life that little bit easier to handle, to juggle. What else did I do? I started to train up the kids to know what was expected of them and to increase the amount of responsibility that they had for their own hygiene, for themselves, for participating in cleaning and tidying, making sure that they know that it's their job to scrape their plates and bring their bowls and everything over to the sink, maybe even to load the dishwasher, maybe even to do a few dishes if they wanted to, because it was fun for them. They did make a mess, so I didn't encourage it too much. Even to sweep up the floor underneath the table and things like that. Just starting to give them more chores and letting them know that the housework isn't just mummy's responsibility, because it makes you feel like a domestic servant, doesn't it? It makes you feel like a maid. And especially when you can't make time for yourself, for self-care, or for you to have your own identity or career. And it starts to feel like your life is just in service to everyone else around you. And around the same time, I learned about what Julia Cameron calls the Virtue Trap. That's what I'm calling this episode, Virtue Trap Masochist, because this just resonated with me. Martha Beck talks about how when something is the truth, you feel this kind of surge of excitement inside of you. Something resonates inside of you. It pings. It is clear as day that you need to pay attention to this thing because it is true and it's applying to you. And when I read this part of week 5 of the Artist's Way about the Virtue Trap, it was like clear as day. This is what I have been doing for so long. So the Virtue Trap idea, basically Julia Cameron says, it's when you are living your life for everybody else and there's nothing left for you. Your life is serving everybody else, but it isn't serving you. And in this process of serving other people, you derive this virtuosity, this idea of, you are martyring yourself. You are taking care of everyone else, which is kind of a faux spiritual, social norm whereby you derive the status of being virtuous. Does that make sense? And through this virtuosity, there is a pleasure, I think, to be derived in that. There is a sense of pride by giving up all of your strength and your care and giving it to everyone else around you. But the trap is, if you're always doing this, if you're only looking out for everyone else's needs and you defer your own needs, and its needs as in personal care, personal health care, but it's also spiritual care, it's soul care, it's looking out for the things that make you tick, that feed your curiosity, that make you feel purposeful in life, that fulfill you. If you are not feeding that, you start to turn resentful. You start to build up resentments internally. And when she was describing this, she kind of described it like you get to the point where you are resentful of those around you, and it's like you're issuing kind of death threats to people around you who you are deferring to and you're taking care of all the time, and you're kind of looking outwards and blaming the world for this deficit, this anemia within you. And then you start to feel like you're a caged animal. You start to feel like you're a cornered beast, and you just want out. And that was that was the place that I was at. When I had my rock bottom moment, that's where I was at. I felt like this caged animal who just needed to bolt, who just needed to be like, screw you all. I'm just going to take care of myself from now on, and I'm going to see what happens. But she also says if you keep going with this, you keep grinding yourself down and taking care of everyone else and letting your soul atrophy, you start to also issue death threats internally to yourself. You feel like, I just wish I was dead. I just want to die. I can't go on. And that's where I was as well when I was at rock bottom. Not only did I feel like a snarling beast in a corner, I also felt like I just wanted out. Something had to give. And I realized in reading The Virtue Trap that was what I had been doing. I had basically engineered my life to take care of everyone else's needs because for some reason or another, whether it's because it felt like society, I just felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. And if I took care of myself, that was selfish. If I tried to pursue my own heart and my goals and my aspirations, that was selfish probably because it wasn't going to make any money. It was a monetary thing, and it would take time and money away from us, away from the family unit. So you feel like you can't do anything about it. This is your life and this is your lot. But if you keep doing that, you will get to this point. You will get to this point where you want to bite someone and you want to bolt and you want to leave. She says it's like, what did she say? She said something brilliant. She says, when you're in this state, it's like your life, and I'm going to quote her, our life is now an out-of-body experience. We're gone. A clinician might call it disassociation. I call it leaving the scene of the crime. That's what I felt like at this moment. I just felt like giving up. I felt like there was nothing to life for me, which is ridiculous and sad when you have two beautiful children who need and love you. And you have a lovely husband who adores you and you have an enviable situation. But if you do not feed yourself, if you do not feed your curiosity, if you are not enabling happiness in your life, if you're not feeding yourself, and you have to know what you need. You have to know when you need solitude. Some of us need more solitude than others. I'm an introvert, so I need more time to myself. Some people feed off of social interactions and they get depressed if they're not around people. And so they need to be putting themselves out there. And, there's a balance to be struck, but you have to know yourself, right? But anyway, the other word that I learned around this time was masochist. And you might think of a masochist like a sexual deviant, but apparently the classic psychiatry term masochist refers to someone who derives pleasure from self-harm. And I also felt like this is what had kept me going since I was a kid. I had been doing the virtue trap thing since I was definitely like prepubescent. I can recall building my life around this kind of idea of having to defer myself and my own identity to other people's needs. And I had been doing this since I was about 11 years old, consciously, which had become an unconscious habit, which had become a personality thing, right? So I had been a virtue trap person. And the thing is, if you're gaining virtuosity, if you are martyring yourself, taking one for the team constantly, of serving everyone else around you, we have this idea that that is a good person, that they are selfless, they are virtuous, and that derives pleasure. So you get this kind of masochism involved. You are harming yourself by not taking care of yourself, by deferring all of your own care to service everyone else. So there's the self-harm, but you are getting pleasure from it because you feel virtuous. So I started to recognize that I was a virtue trap masochist. And it's great when you recognize something. It's great when you identify, when you are aware of, you can label yourself, because it gives you an idea of what you're up against. It gives you a visual. Having that picture in my head, that title, Virtue Trap Masochist, I realized that I had to start reprogramming this aspect of myself. I needed to start becoming more aware of when I was saying yes to other people and saying no to myself. And that gave me the strength to stand up to people who threatened to take the time away that I needed to write a novel. All right, this is all building up to me trying to make time, like a sandwich, as Sarah says, for myself, to pursue this thing that might be my purpose, that might feed my soul. And so I had these 2 days that I was teaching on, and if a client would say, oh, I can't do either of those days, could you do this day instead? And if I say no, I'm losing that hour of work and I'm letting down my client. If I say yes, I'm virtuous because I'm giving up my time, even though I'd rather not teach on that at that time. I'm virtuous because I'm saying yes and I'm taking care of someone else and their desires. Instead of saying yes to that, I had to balance it because I knew that I needed the money. I needed to uphold my financial responsibilities, but I needed to protect my time. I have to prioritize both of these things. So I would say, I can do that day, but only if you can come first thing in the morning or after lunch or just before I have to go for pickup. Because I knew that if I had to teach at one of those times, it was a good break time and it left me a big chunk of time to flow, to find that time when I could create something, when I could give myself the best chance. I could nurture myself. So I can be virtuous, but I can also take care of myself. I need to do this and I need to be more conscious of this. And I needed to prioritize. And that was another thing that David Epstein said about focus. You have to prioritize. You might have a to-do list, but the thing is, probably only 3 things on that to-do list are going to get done in any day. And if you prioritize lots of low priority tasks because they're easy to mark off, then you're only ever going to achieve that. You're only ever going to take care of the low priority stuff. You have to look at your to-do list and see the 3 most important things that you have to get done that day. And those are the 3 things you put at the top of the list. Those are the 3 things you focus on. And then to know, just like I said in the Country Bunny episode, that Hofstadter's law comes into play here. And that is this idea that humans always underestimate how long it takes to complete a task, especially a complicated task. Even if they know this Hofstadter's law thing is a thing, that it exists, we still underestimate. So you're probably not even going to get those 3 things done. So focus on the most important thing first, and then try not to front load your day with tasks that are going to leave residue on your brain. Don't open your email, don't open your WhatsApp until the most important things are done. Give yourself space and time to flow with those tasks, not to be interrupted. Keep your phone someplace else, keep it far away, right? And that sets you up for success. So these are things that I was thinking about at this time. I was getting serious about prioritizing my life, facilitating me writing this novel. I wanted to set myself up for success, to give myself an opportunity to really explore if I could do it, if it was the thing. And also to finish this experiment that I had set out to, that I had presented to Charlie in the woods after I'd had my little breakdown and we had gone for our meeting. And I had said, this is my plan for this quarter. We're going to experiment with these 3 things and I'll report back. I needed to get to the end of that experiment. I wanted to know if writing was the thing. So I'm going to stop this episode now here. So next episode, I'm going to get into some other things that David Epstein was talking about how we learn better, which were, again, some things that I am applying to this day to try and become more knowledgeable, to absorb all the wisdom that I've been bombarded with, that I keep on finding, that I really want to metabolize. How do we learn better? How do we find our match fit? Basically more advice on how we find our purpose. And how do we set ourselves up for success? And all of this is going to lead further into the neuroscience that I was learning from Dr. Tara Swart with her book, The Source, and some more psychopomps that are going to come into play. So I'm going to leave you with all this just to think about these things. Think about task switching. Think about the residue on your brain that tasks are leaving. Think about how disruptions affect you and create stress because you are task switching. Think about how you can prioritize. If you're feeling overwhelmed, make a to-do list and know that you're getting all of that overwhelm, all of that stuff that's milling around in your brain, all that residue, and you're putting it down in front of you visually, so you're organizing it. Know that if you tidy your space, I know this sounds military, but discipline is another thing that I've really been coming to appreciate. And having organized space around you, having your life feeling organized around you will make your life easier to deal with. So know that that's supporting you and setting you up for success. And then, let's also become aware of our energy and how much energy are we giving to everybody else? And are you saving some for yourself? Just think about that. Are you a Virtue Trap Masochist? And on that note, I'm not sure if Psychopomp or Virtue Trap Masochist should be the name of my new band, but I'm thinking about it. So don't take either one of those names for your band. That's taken. Those are mine. Just kidding. I'm not going to start a band. All right. I'm going to leave you guys with that. And I look forward to talking to you next time. And I hope you have a good week and some of these things start to percolate down and start to make sense. Look for me on Instagram. I'm on there. I'm starting to be a little bit more active and posting, and I'm having fun with that. Just talking about some of the little habits and things that I have been incorporating into my life over the last year, and how they work, and the neuroscience and the whatever science behind it. And please follow, subscribe to this. I can't tell you how much it would help me if you follow, if you share. I would love to make it bigger. And I have a grand plan that I will talk to you about at some point that I'm gearing up towards. So yeah, and you take care of yourself. Go be you and start to become more aware of things that your body, mind, heart, soul chime are telling you. All right, take that with you. Walk with some welly. May the welly be with you. And I love you guys. Again, I'm giving you oxytocin, so take it. See you next time.